Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley, and though your eyes do not deceive you, that is Jeremy Conn of 105.7 The Fans, the Big Bad Morning Show. You can see Jeremy every Monday through Friday, or see and hear Jeremy now every Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on 105.7 The Fans, Big Bad Morning Show. Jeremy, good morning. Thank you for taking time out of a Saturday and taking time away from your family to spend it with me. Talking a little Orioles baseball. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for taking me away from my family. No, I was going to say Pigtown Sports got a little uglier today. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, man. I look. I see you guys on social media all the time. We've talked plenty of times. I've done this with you. It's just I like being around people that are passionate about it and that are intelligent. Doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but it's one thing when you're passionate and you're just not negative all the time and beating them up. So they're in an interesting situation right now with obviously we'll get into the Framber stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and for those, I think everybody forgot what Zach looks like. I don't think Zach's done a show with us since like early December, since right before the winter meetings. So yeah. He's got. I mean, everybody knows Zach. Zach was a former Orioles farm, and he played football, basketball, baseball, and all of his kids do exactly the same thing. So
that's what he's doing. Yeah,
right. Football in the fall, basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring. So if you're joining us and you didn't hear us last week, we will be moving back to Sunday nights at 8:30 p.m. beginning next Sunday, February 15th, and that will last until football season starts again. So our last 10 a.m. edition of the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by Help My Gambling Problem. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Jeremy, I swear that's not a jab at you. That's always the first read that we do to start the show.
So can I tell you something? Like with the fact that when gambling was legal or sports gambling became legal in most states, states had grants to spend money on 1-800-GAMBLER because they know what the issue is. It's like, hey, we're going to tell you to drink alcohol, but we got to have something set up for the people that overindulge. And it's so like, I think gambling is one of the easiest things to overindulge because once you deposit money, it doesn't feel like money anymore unless you're going and handing someone tickets, or, going the old route and betting at a sports book. But I mean, look, I think it's great that they have this for people because, look, I've had my down times. Gambling's not an issue when you're winning. It's only an issue when you're losing, right? For most people. But I do think they're inherently people that, they need help. And this isn't something they should be doing, not because they're bad gamblers, just because they overindulge and it's no way to win.
Oh, Jeremy, I am a terrible gambler. If I pick it, anybody that takes advice from me, pick the exact opposite because I never win. I never win. There was one time I was up like $600 and I was feeling really good about things. I was like, oh man, I can I'm the commissioner of fantasy football. He was like, I can use this money to pay everybody back, for the winnings in fantasy football this year. I lost it in a week. Yeah. Like I lost it in a week, and $600 is probably not a lot to some people. To me, that's a lot of money. I lost $600 in a week. If my wife's listening right now, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Not serious at all. Hey, Paul, the same thing happened to me with horse racing. I'm not a horse racing guy. I like the sports books and betting on sports, but the first time I went to a Black Eyed Susan, didn't know what I was doing, placed a bet, didn't realize I should be betting like $2 and $3 here and there. And then all of a sudden I'm laying down $20 on something that shouldn't hit. And then I hit my first ever bet, my first ever horse race bet. I won like $1,800. And then I took, or maybe it was like 1,600. I took 300. This is so bad. I took 320 because I knew that was my child support payment. And I put that in my pocket. And I proceeded to piss away the rest of the money. Just lost everything, betting horses. And I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, it gets away from you so quickly. And that's why, like, if I'm walking by the casino, I keep walking. Because I know that I will end up walking in with money and walking out with, no money left in my savings. So I try to stay away from it. Now, Jeremy, getting into the Orioles and what's going on with them. Big headline coming out of Birdland this week. That's right. The Orioles acquire Blaze Alexander from the Diamondbacks. No, we're going to get into that. We will get into that. But the biggest headline of all, Framber Valdez signs with the Detroit Tigers. 3 years, $115 million, $20 million deferred. He has an opt-out after the second season. Orioles were linked to Framber as the heavy favorite basically all off season. I have a theory that they never were really in on him, and it was all speculation because it made the most sense for them to be in on him. But I don't think that they ever were. In your mind, what happened with the Orioles and Framber Valdez that he is now wearing the wrong shade of orange?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things here. So first off, I don't think the season or the off season becomes an absolute failure just because you don't get Framber. They did a lot of other things. I think the team's more built for the regular season unless Bradish and Trevor Rogers become, what Trevor Rogers was last year and what we've seen from Bradish, then you got a 1 and 2. And I think Boz has upside. The problem is when you look at Framber, everybody was putting him right at the front of the rotation. I think ultimately with Mike Elias and before they had David Rubenstein, I truly believe this because when we talked about liftoff and all the other things, he said something even before that he wanted to run this team like the Rays, but he also wanted to put more money into it and hopefully keep our own instead of moving them out. And I feel like we did the deaded can theory, like, oh, we'll pay this much. We have a number, but we're not going to go above it. And now I think they will go above it. But with Framber, I think they set the line and said, hey, this is what we're offering. He waited for so long. And I keep saying this too, like, I don't want to sign a pitcher while we're into spring training. They always get hurt. Every single time they get hurt. So if they're not signing somebody beforehand in the next week or so, then I don't want any of the guys, man. And because it's just going to take too long. And I also think there are opportunities at the trade deadline this year to make some moves, but there's a lot of weird things with Framber. I mean, I was on Glenn Clark's show and he was interviewing Eric Kratz and we talked about the incident with the catcher and he's like 100% he threw at his catcher. Like, I don't know what it was about, and I think we all felt that way, but hearing another catcher say it, it just kind of, let you know that, hey, your intuition was right, that he did try to do it. So I'm not entirely upset we didn't get Framber. I would have liked to have gotten one of the upper echelon guys and the guys to trade for. I think most of the good ones are gone now, unless Minnesota changes their mind.
No, I agree. It's almost like you're looking at my notes. I agree with you. Here's the thing about Framber. He's been reported to be a clubhouse cancer, be a hothead in the clubhouse. And we know that the first thing that matters for this Orioles roster is clubhouse cohesion. The last thing you want is somebody coming in and tearing that apart. Now, it's going to take a lot for one guy to tear that apart. But then when you add to that, he very clearly intentionally crossed up his catcher. He very clearly did that. And then on top of that, fastball velocity was down from July to August, from August to September. And in August and September, he pitched to a 6.05 ERA. And when you look at that, your ace, who's supposed to be pitching his best in August and September to make that playoff push and get you ramped up for the postseason, is pitching to a 6.05 ERA. Last I checked, the Astros missed the playoffs for the first time in like 10 years last season. So I don't know that I necessarily want a guy who's going to be bad for my clubhouse, who's intentionally throwing at his catcher, who's got diminishing velocity, who's 32 years old, getting almost $40 million a year, who's got, like I said, diminished velocity and pitching to a 6.05 ERA in the most important part of the season. I don't know that I want that guy at the top of my rotation. Now, look, that's not to say that if the Orioles signed Framber Valdez, I wouldn't have been jumping up and down like everybody else. I would have been excited because those first 4 months when he's dominating, you're going to be super excited and you're going to accept a little bit less down the stretch because it's like, okay, but this guy knows how to pitch when it really, really matters in the postseason. Now, my thing is, I agree with you. I know that they talked to Framber back in November. I believe that they set a line, right? I don't know if they made an official offer. I believe they said, we're comfortable doing this. He went back out, was seeing what he could get. And then when the Detroit Tigers came in the 11th hour and like, hey, here's $38 million a year, and you get to opt out after year 2. I don't think the Orioles wanted to touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's a lot of money, and I
and the opt out too. Like, yeah, I mean,
right? Like that to me is, it just tells me that the Orioles were like, thanks, no thanks. I believe that, and look, you and I are pretty plugged in, right? Like, you probably have sources that are directly involved with the organization. I have a source who has a source. I heard about Alonso right, like a little bit before it happened. I heard about Eflin hours before it happened. I heard about the 5-year offer for Suarez 2 weeks before he accepted an offer with Boston.
He was the guy, right? He was the guy.
He was the guy. That was the guy. I think that Dylan Cease may have been the guy, but then Toronto blew him away with a stupid deal. And then you look at Suarez, I think that they were like, all right, Suarez is our dude. I think they had an offer that matched Boston's, and I think ultimately Suarez didn't want to be here, and that's why he's a Boston Red Sox right now. I think that's what happened. They could pay with the Valdez, but only at their number. I never heard about an offer going out to Valdez, and I only heard that they weren't that interested and that they preferred Suarez over Valdez rather than we're definitely in on him. And the rumors are a week before he signed with Detroit, the Orioles were out on Valdez. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I kind of feel like some of that makes sense. And there's a lot of stuff that even being tied in, you're not privy to. I've definitely gotten some inside information that I didn't run with that's been right. I've gotten information that's been wrong and ran with it, so it's kind of in between. I'm not a break the news type of guy, but I like to find out what's going on behind the scenes. And I say this to everyone, and this applies in real life. I try to be as nice as I can to everyone in this industry, and I end up getting more back because of that. Like, I feel like I'm the guy that most people tell their secrets to and say, hey, don't tell anyone. And I don't tell anyone.
Right.
And so then it keeps happening. So I get the chance to find out some of that stuff. Like, I had a big connection when Buck Showalter was here to get inside information. That's why when I released the JJ Hardy signing, everybody's like, where the hell did you get that? And I didn't want to be the guy. Like, Jim Bowden started following me, and then he realized most of my tweets are about farts and nonsense, so he realized that, hey, this isn't a baseball guy I should be following. But getting back to what you're saying about Framber, I didn't want the knee-jerk reaction to just give him whatever he wants because we're here when the pitching market next year is so much better. And I know that's not what people want to hear because we're trying now. You still have that opportunity at the trade deadline, depending on how things go, to make a move or to get somebody with an expiring contract. And oh, by the way, Zach Gallen's interesting to me. I like all the stuff that Zach was writing about him. He had some interesting stuff where I'm looking at his numbers going, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. But again, is this a consolation prize for the Orioles because they missed out? We'll see. I just don't know that there's a ton out there outside of him that I would want. Chris Bassett was another guy's name that was brought up because he's a vet and probably wouldn't have a problem being, a long man or even working with the younger guys. And from what I heard, he's really great with young pitchers. So we'll see what they do, but I hope they do something soon if they're doing something.
Well, yeah. I mean, to your point, I don't want anybody that's a free agent that's going to sign after spring training starts, because we saw it with Alex Cobb here. He signed 2 weeks before the season started, and then he was awful to start the year, had to go on the IL, and when he finally came back and pitched well, the Orioles were 60 games below 500. Like, it didn't matter, right?
Then Blake Snell twice and Jordan Montgomery when he from Texas to Arizona, same thing happened.
Yeah, like if you're a free agent and you can be throwing on the side all you want and working with your own trainers and all that. It's not the same. It's not the same as ramping up with a team, with your big league coaches down in whether you're in Arizona or in Florida in spring training. It's just not the same, right? And now, if you're going to make a trade, if there's still somebody out there to be traded for, and I don't know who could be out there because we've heard that after the minority owner spent $500 million to get the Twins out of debt, they have no desire to trade Joe Ryan or Pablo Lopez. Those are really the only two guys that come to mind. I don't think you have what it takes to go get Skubal from the Tigers. I don't know who could be had in a trade.
They have what it takes. The question is, do you have the balls and the stomach to pull that off? I mean, would you be willing to trade, a Jordan Westberg and two of your top prospects, or Jackson Holiday and like three other prospects, and maybe they ask for Basayo. That's been the big problem when teams ask for trades, because I thought Garrett Crochet was the guy, and clearly he was. Red Sox gave up some really good pieces, but they bit the bullet and did it. I think at some point we've got to try it. We've got to, either overvalue somebody and overpay them to bring them in and to get this thing rolling, because once the winning starts happening again, because I feel like with this team, there's so many ifs. A lot of those ifs I think do come to fruition, but there's a handful of I'm going, I don't know. I mean, it's not likely that everything goes in your favor, but as the team is constructed right now, I feel like they're built for the regular season and they're competing for the playoffs. And then I guess you let the chips fall where they may if you get there. But I do like this lineup 1 through 9, and I think they have a lot of pieces there. I think more people are concerned, obviously, with the rotation, but I think it's a good rotation, not great.
Well, yeah, and we're going to get into the lineup here in a little bit in the show. I like the rotation. Bradish is an ace. His last full season, he finished 4th in Cy Young voting, and legitimately, he should have been a finalist. Kevin Gausman, the only thing he had over him across the board was more Ks per nine. That was it. Bradish should have been a finalist for the Cy Young. Trevor Rogers, I don't think Trevor Rogers is an ace, but I think he has the ability to give you ace-like stretches like he did for 18 starts last season. So I think he's a solid number 2. Even if his ERA doubles, it's still 3.5, So, and then Shane Baz, 5 pitches, touches triple digits with his fastball. He was a former top pitching prospect in baseball. He's coming off Tommy John surgery. He pitched over 160 innings last year. This would be he's under team control for 3 seasons, and this would be the year that he takes that next step and gets you. It becomes like a solid number 3 or number 2 starter with an ace ceiling. I have a lot of faith in Baz, and I have a lot of faith in Eflin. Now that he says he feels the best that he's felt in his entire career coming off this back surgery, and we saw him pitch to a 3.5 ERA for 2 years with that back injury. So I have a lot of faith in Eflin. You look at Dean Kramer's baseball savant page, and you look at how much more red he has year to year to year, he could be primed for a breakout. Now, look, we're doing the same thing that we did last year when they signed Sagano and they signed Morton, and we're like, well, if they do this and if they do that, a lot of ifs and buts with this rotation. There could be 5 guys who pitch to a 3.5 ERA or better, or you could have 3 or 4 guys who pitch to a 4.5 ERA or worse. It is what it is at this point. I still think you need to add one more starter. You brought up Zach Gallen. You look at his baseball savant page, a lot of red turning into blue year over year. And if you look at his 2025, it's all blue. Yeah. All blue. So that scares me. If it's me, and maybe this is just because of the name, I'd love Verlander for a year. I have talked myself into Verlander. The guy had Tommy John surgery and then comes back the next year at 39 years old and wins a Cy Young and pitches like a 170 something ERA. Then at 42 years old, pitches to a 2.99 ERA the last 15 starts of the season. I look at Verlander and I say that's a guy who his stuff probably isn't what it used to be, but he's a 3-time Cy Young Award winner. He's a former MVP as a starting pitcher. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He knows how to pitch. This ain't Charlie Morton. This is Justin freaking Verlander. And yeah, 43, but I just think he knows how to pitch.
Yeah, and look, the Verlander stuff, I said no to it only because if it doesn't work out, it's going to look so much like Charlie Morton. And I think, I don't know that Elias can afford to have that fail.
Right.
If you want to be fair to Verlander, a couple things. Is he pitching in one of the best pitcher parks in all of baseball? Yes. Did he deserve better than he got last year? Yes. If you look at his whip, it's scary to look at his whip going, man, he put a lot of guys on base. He got out of a lot of jams last year too. And I know his brother was screaming about it on social media. Oh, he's been so unlucky. Nobody wants to hear it, right? It's like, oh, unlucky. Okay. But honestly, sometimes when you look into the numbers a little deeper, he did get a little unlucky. I saw the Charlie Morton thing, and I'm not telling you that's what Verlander is. I think he's better than that. And it was weird that Morton caught fire there for a short period of time and we could get something for him. But I don't know that if that blows up in your face, I don't know that Mike Elias can survive that.
And I agree with you. If Verlander signs with the Orioles and then he comes out and at the end of April, the ERA is pushing 5 or above, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's especially after he comes out this off season, after they sign Alonso at the press conference and he says, we're still looking for a top of the rotation starter. We have deep pockets and no financial restrictions. It's a terrible look.
Yeah. And then the other part of this too is I know nobody can see it because you have it cropped out. Huge Kate Upton poster to the left of Paul Valley here. That's why he wants Justin Verlander to come down. I got to admit, that's a nice little sidebar to kind of take a peek over. Hey, there's Kate Upton. Oh, I'm staring now. So let me stop. I'm still staring. That's kind of how that would go. But there is something to having a veteran leader on that staff, right? Like right now, is it Eflin? I mean, yeah.
Or Kramer. I mean, people don't realize Kramer's been here for 6 seasons.
He deserves better than what people give him, man. And again, like I love having him in the rotation. When we talk about adding a 6th starter, and it's like, who do you take out? And usually it works itself out. Somebody's out for an extended period of time. First month of the season, you really only need 4 starters because of the days off. Would you go to a 6-man rotation? I don't like it. I like staying with the normal 5. But people are like Kramer would be the odd man out. And I'm going, are you guys sure? Because outside of his first innings in April and sometimes even going on further, he's been so damn solid. And I like having him in the rotation. I'm not telling you I want him to start game one of a playoff series, but I definitely want him to be one of my 5 throughout the year.
I mean, Dean Kramer right now lines up as your number 5 starter, assuming everybody else is healthy. He lines up as your number 5 starter, and he threw more innings last year than anybody else in your rotation. Threw 171 and 2/3 innings last year, which was just below a career high. And we're talking about a guy who, April sucks every year for Kramer. We're like, why can't this guy hit the ground running as soon as the gates open? But then from May 1st on, you're talking 3.5 and below with Dean Kramer. So, for me, he's in our rotation. And if he's your number 5, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Dean Kramer at number 5. You sign it. Maybe you go out, you sign a Zach Gallen to a 1-year prove-it deal, or Verlander to a 1-year deal. Then at the deadline, if you're in contention, you're trading for that top starter. Look at next year's free agent starting pitching class. It is one of the best maybe ever.
There's like 12 names. You have some opt-outs too that they have to opt out, but I would expect them to.
The top names: Tarek Skubal, Freddie Peralta, Chris Sale, Kevin Gausman, Brendan Woodruff, Robbie Ray, Shota Imanaga, Jack Flaherty, Shane Bieber, Brady Singers, Jesus Luzardo, Tyler Miley, Chris Bubik. The opt-out guys: Corbin Burns, Michael King, Jose Barrios, and Nick Pivetta. And some of those guys are going to opt out. Burns may be a little less likely because he's coming off Tommy John surgery and has to have a good year this year for it to make sense. But there are so many names out there that you can more justifiably spend $30 to $40 million a year on than you could justify for a Framber Valdez or Ranger Suarez this year. And I'm not saying that the Orioles' plan was to come out and lie to us and say, we're going after a top starter, then we're going to miss out because we're really trying to get somebody next year. But if you make a trade for one of these guys, some team is going to have a legitimate top starting pitcher and they're out of it at the deadline. Now, that's less likely these days because so many teams make the playoffs. There's only like 3 or 4 teams that are truly out of it by the time you hit the deadline. And the Orioles have not been proven to be very good at making deals at the deadline. But they can go out there and maybe the Tigers are foundering. Maybe, what we saw from Framber this past season was a sign of things to come. And all of a sudden they're struggling, and Skubal, hey, let's get whatever we can get for him because he's leaving at the end of the year, and we want to get something better than a couple of draft picks.
Yeah, I think there's also the fine line because I'd probably get labeled it more than most. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every move they make is good and every guy that they let walk is bad, but I definitely think there are people out there that no matter what move Elias makes, it's going to be a bad one. Why'd you do that? I don't understand it. I don't get it. And it's okay to question some of the things, but when I look at the front office here, I look at all the things, and in doing radio since 2000, I look at all the things that we didn't have. We weren't involved in the international market. We didn't have facilities in the Dominican. We weren't willing to go out and offer multi-year deals to people. With Angelos here, nobody was willing to do it. And I know people look at like the Reds and the Pirates this year. It's like, oh, the Reds are in on Kyle Schwarber. Well, yeah, he's from Cincinnati, but how in on him were they? The Pirates are in on Schwarber. Does that mean they talked to him and said, hey, we'd be willing to offer this, 3 years, $30 million or something? I don't think the Orioles are that team anymore that's doing that just to say they're in on somebody. I think they did make some of the best bids for players, or at least competitive bids with the ones that they got. And ultimately they took other ones. And going back to it, I've loved Dylan Cease. I think he's got one of the best sliders in baseball. And I think Kyle Bradish is chasing him down as having one of the best as well. But that contract, and what you have to realize, look at the Garrett Cole contract. How do the Yankees feel at the end of it? They can eat it. But when you give somebody that much money over a 7 or 8 year deal and they hit the wall in year 4, you're stuck and you're trying to grind that thing out. And we've seen the injuries happen. Corbin Burns, velocity, strikeouts per 9 were coming down. You're looking at it going up. And then he ends up getting Tommy John surgery, which can happen to anyone. But I worry about that, given that I don't know that the Orioles, maybe they are the team that could eat one of these awful contracts if they it blew up in their face. But I'm sitting here watching the Yankees and Red Sox spend money when they have terrible contracts on guys like Ellsbury over the years, or even Devers' contract. Like all the money that they've spent and the things that have blew up in their face, they're still able to compete because they've thrown money at some of their issues. And I finally feel like we actually have a legitimate farm system. When I first got into radio, Paul, they were like, hey, come watch the kids play. And then Chris Richard, who's 29 years old, would get his first major league at bat. And I'm going, this is terrible. Hayden Penn, this is what we're talking about. I finally feel like we have legitimate prospects, but I also feel like we covet them too much and we're not willing to part with them. That's how I feel at the beginning of the fantasy football season. I drafted my team and somebody offered me a trade week 1. And I'm looking going, I'm a better drafter than these guys. I'm not trading this guy now. I like my team. And then in 3 weeks, I go, I wish I had traded that guy. So I feel like we do covet prospects too much and that we have to get better in that department. Maybe that's something we see at the trade deadline. I do think Scooble gets moved at the trade deadline. Again, I don't know what the offers have to be for a half a season of Scooble. The other thing you brought up, Zach Gallen, if you sign him to a 1-year deal, you still lose a pick. So I don't know that they're going to sign him to a 1-year deal because, again, what do they covet? Their draft picks.
Right. And it would be something like the 85th or 87th overall pick because their first couple of picks are protected. Yeah, it's a 3rd round pick. But for a guy who's got diminishing everything in Zach, which is so weird to me because he's like the youngest one on the market. He's 31 years old. You would think that he's coming into his prime, but everything suggests that he's falling off. Now, he is coming off a year where he threw 192 innings after throwing under 150 the year before. Maybe it was a little bit more of a ramp up, but people have said that, but his best games were the last 11 starts when he pitched to a 3-something ERA. So I don't know how that works, but what I do know is that the Orioles need another starting pitcher, and that I don't want it to be a free agent. I think they've got to trade for somebody. I've heard talks about Nick Pivetta from the fans. I don't know how likely that is.
I was going to bring that one up to you too, because I've read some of the same stuff. I think there were some fans putting it out there, but I also thought I saw something on MLB Trade Rumors about Pivetta.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Nick Pivetta, he was coveted last year. Like, he was close to a top of the rotation start, and I'm looking at his numbers. I'm like, he's never been great. He's had stretches, but he's never been great. Then he goes out and throws like a 2.97 ERA last year and proves me wrong. So what the hell do I know? But
he was Kramer. He was Kramer before Kramer. Maybe he gets a season like that. Again, solid pitcher. You're going to get your innings. He's never going to really embarrass you out there for a full season. But the same thing when Pivetta was with the Phillies? Is that where he started? He bounced around. Well, you were watching.
He was with Boston for a little bit, wasn't he?
He was with Boston, but I thought he started in Philadelphia, and they really liked him, almost like how Zach Wheeler, they really liked Wheeler, and then they had to make their decision on who they were keeping. I thought Pivetta was a Philly guy that went to Boston. I may be misremembering, but again, too many years, brain fog, too many edibles in my day-to-day scene.
Well, there's certainly a lot of names out there. Let's see. I can look up Nick Pivetta real quick. He did start with my computer. He was drafted by the Nationals, and he his first 3 years were in Philadelphia, and then he got traded to Boston mid-2020. So what if there could be a mid-2020? He got traded to Boston in 2020. So
I think mid-2020 is when the season started. Right?
Yeah, if not a little. I mean, maybe he was released. I mean, he had a 15.88 ERA. He was probably DFA'd, and then Boston claimed him.
Yeah,
but last year, I mean, 31 starts, 13-5, a 5.3 WAR, B WAR, and a 2.87 ERA, and 182 innings. So Nick Pivetta, a name that not a lot of people are talking about is Zach Littell. And Zach Littell has made 75 starts the last 3 years. He's thrown 414 innings, and he's pitched to a 3.75 ERA. He fell off a little bit after getting traded from Tampa Bay last year, but this is a guy who goes out there, averages, 25 starts a year, averages about 170 innings the last 2 years, 150 the last 3. You could do a lot worse than Zach Littell. I'm surprised we aren't hearing more about him.
There's one thing that I don't like about Zach Littell, and it's if you go back to last year, and I think he's still probably up near the top, he may have been past the last 2 weeks of the season. He gave up more home runs than anyone in baseball. And it's so weird when you think about the numbers he's had. If you can cut back on those, do you consider that because Cincinnati plays in the Great American Small Park? A lot of those teams that you play in that division have smaller ballparks, more hitters parks, unless you get a Wrigley Wind game. And then the same thing with, Littell when he was in Tampa. I always thought he was solid. But I'm hoping if maybe you eliminate some of those home runs, maybe you get to a better ballpark. We see it. It's not like he's a bad pitcher at all. Mm-hmm. The only thing last year is, again, if you're going to run into a couple, you better not be putting people on base.
And that's the thing. Like, when you hear his name, you don't get the cachet that you get with, some of these guys that were at the top of the free, like a Dylan Cease or Peralta or Suarez, Valdez, etc. But then you look at what he does every year, and you mentioned the fact that he pitched in Cincinnati, which is notorious bandbox. He pitched in Tampa Bay, which you're either pitching at Tropicana or you're pitching at Steinbrenner Field. Either way, these are really small ballparks. That the long ball is a big thing there. You come to Camden Yards, one of the more hitter friendly, pitcher friendly parks, which is still so weird to say. Right field not so pitcher friendly, but left field 100% is. I wouldn't hate I always want to call him Chuck Liddell. I wouldn't hate a Zach Littell signing, but it's it would not have the same panache that you're used to seeing from these top of the rotation starters. But
was there real quick with the starting pitchers this year? Freddie Peralta was the guy I wanted. Like I kept saying, I feel like, and even with the fact he was going to be a free agent, I know he wanted to do a prove it year, but I think if things went well, you could keep him. Was there a guy for you? Was it Suarez or someone else that you wanted to see come here?
For me, it was Mackenzie Gore, or I wanted them to either trade for Mackenzie Gore or Joe Ryan, preferably Mackenzie Gore. Peralta, I pushed him so far out of my brain because it didn't line up for the Orioles. The Orioles have the pieces to trade, but if you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, for Peralta, they didn't want prospects. They wanted major league ready players. And if you look at first base, they have who the Orioles have to trade from Mountcastle, Mayo. They have Andrew Vaughn at first base. If you're looking to trade, and that's also covers DH, which is Christian Yelich, and they're paying him a lot of money. Not as much as he should have gotten when they signed him, but they're still paying him $23-24 million a year. You look at every starting position on the diamond for the Brewers, and they all have a 700 plus OPS, except at shortstop, where it was Joey Ortiz and a 599 OPS. The only player that the Orioles had that would have been able to get Peralta is Jackson Holliday. And are you ready? Are you willing to trade Jackson Holliday to the Brewers for one season of Peralta? Are you going to be able to extend him? What reason does he have to want to sign an extension with you instead of test the free agent market for the first time in his career? So to me, it was so unlikely because of what you were going to have to give up. It was Jackson Holliday or bust, in my opinion, for the Brewers.
See, I thought it could have been, and granted, it's not something that's still favorable, but whether or not it was a Trey Gibson included in that with like a Mayo, but I heard something with the outfielders too when you start looking at them. And then, granted, they've got their own Jackson and Churio, but like on the other sides of it, Dylan Beavers, Colton Cowser, would they entertain any of that? And then there would be another knee-jerk reaction or another domino to fall. Okay, who's playing center field? And I know we haven't talked about it, but the Blaze trade, he can play center field too. He plays multiple positions. I think that's part of the reason why he's here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we're about to get into that, but first and foremost, today's show is brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. If you missed anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, including conversation with Tim Kirkshin, Seahawks assistant coach and former Ravens linebacker Josh Bynes, Jeremy Conn, and much more. Find them in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. And as always, watch or listen to GCR every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or right here on PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages. When did they move to 11?
I don't know when that happened. I know the hours changed, but I found out this week because when I went in studio, it was for Glenn to pay off the loss in the football picks from 2 years ago where he had to eat that Brazilian sardine. It's like a Jello mold. It's not Jello, but it's like cornmeal and polenta, sardines, green olives, eggs. It's disgusting. He had to eat that. And then he was supposed to get his body waxed and they dropped the ball. So all of a sudden when I got there, I was supposed to wax his ass. So we tried to do it. It didn't go very well. But yeah, that's one that you got to watch. I mean, listening to it's fine, but you'd like to see those things, I believe.
The funny thing is, I love Glenn. I used to produce his show, so we used to talk. I think he used to come on every Monday.
Yeah.
And I work and he comes on right at in the middle of the day, so I can't ever listen. I randomly turned on the show the other day, and it was a show that you were on. So I knew about the sardine pie, and I knew about the waxing. I felt so bad for you because it's like I'm walking. I have to give Glenn a what?
Well, that's the thing. And Griffin never told me that. Like Glenn's like, no, Griffin's like, I texted you. And I'm like, dude, here's all your texts. You never said waxing anything. Like, I'm in. Don't get me wrong. It's okay. But I'm always game to be a part of it. I even told Glenn I wasn't doing these stupid things anymore after I feel like I got okey doked in one of those soccer ones where you randomly get numbers. And I'm like, how did I get all the teams that I didn't even know those countries had soccer teams? And I was the one that got the US, and I didn't want the damn US. So I lost a bet and I think I had to eat 5 hot dogs covered in mayonnaise. It was disgusting. I hate mayonnaise.
I see. I could have done that. I lost a couple of bets with Glenn. One of them, I had to eat a half a watermelon covered in mustard on his show. The beginning of that was fine, but the more you ate, the worse it got. There's a picture that Glenn posted of me where my face is. And then for his holiday drinking show that he did this year, my trivia team lost to his trivia team, so we had to eat a hot dog and pickle Jello pie.
Oh, I saw it. They brought some out and asked me if I wanted any on Thursday.
It was honestly, I only really like dill pickles. It wasn't terrible. Like, I like hot dogs, I like pickles, I like Jello. It's like Joey. It's like jam good, custard good, beef good. But like it wears on you. It was, by the time I got to that last bite, I was ready to never eat it ever again.
So I lost the year I lost. I had to eat all the haggis and tripe, all the like Scottish meats that you don't, or not Scottish meats, but you don't want to eat it. It's disgusting. And Glenn brought out a gigantic plate and he goes, "You have to eat all of it." I said, "Look, I lost. I am definitely going to eat some of each piece on here or each thing. I'm not eating that entire plate. It's not happening," because I would have thrown up. 2 minutes into it. Oh.
No, there's no way. A bite or two is one thing. The whole thing, even the whole thing, completely other.
It's mental.
Yeah, and that's why we love it. So you brought it up right before we talked about Glenn. Blaze Alexander acquired from the Arizona Diamondbacks the Orioles center reliever Cade Stroud, right-handed minor league starting pitcher Wellington Aracena, and minor league infielder Jose Mejia. Aracena came over in the trade with the Mets for Gregory Soto last year. Mejia was an international signing. He fared well in rookie ball before struggling a bit in low A last year. The big loss is Cade Stroud. And my knee-jerk reaction was this trade doesn't make sense until you dig a little deeper. Stroud, out of pen for the Orioles last year, 171 ERA across 26 and third innings, covering 25 games. Mostly struggled in his minor league career. So a lot of smoke and mirrors probably with Cade Stroud last year coming out of the Orioles pen. Then you look at what you're getting in Blaze Alexander. He's a scrappy, versatile player. He can play all 3 infield positions. He's best at third base. He can play in the outfield, best in center field. Has a little bit of pop. He had 20 extra base hits last year in 74 games and above a 700 OPS in a utility role. Seems like that utility player battle is over before it began. Jeremiah Jackson would appear to be on the outside looking in. What I, for one, didn't think he had a chance of making this Orioles roster with all the talent that they have. Everybody's been talking about him like he's the 4th outfielder. Numbers have been in serious decline the last few seasons. And they're paying him $2 million. He's out of options. Blaze Alexander is out of options. Do you keep both of them? Do you keep one of them? Is Jordan Westberg dealing with another nagging injury that they're going to tell us about on Thursday when pitchers and catchers report? I don't know what's going on here. I like the player that Blaze Alexander is. He is also out of options, but he has 5 years of team control, and he may just be scratching the surface of what he can be. What was your reaction to the Blaze Alexander trade? And a lot of fans are talking themselves into the idea that this makes sense if the Orioles have another big move coming to trade for a starting pitcher. I'm not so sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of that when that stuff happened and Blaze gets here and it's like, wait a minute, are they trading Holiday or Westberg? What's happening there? I like the move. I can't sit here and say that they gave up too much. When I initially looked at it, that's what I thought, because I was interested in Aracena from last year with the Mets, seeing that trade, because we obviously looked at all the players that the Orioles got back in those trades. They did the right thing by selling at that time. And then now you're doing what we say. You use prospects to either develop them or trade them for something that you need. They needed a utility infielder. And from what I was told and the sources I have, they did not like Jeremiah Jackson's defense whatsoever.
Not at all.
And getting a chance, the bat looked good. I don't know, especially with having the likes of Basayo here now, with the log jam, if you want to call it that, with first catcher DH, of who's going to be playing in that group, because you'd like to think those guys are going to be on the field most of the time or playing. So that kind of eliminates that DH spot. But But with Blaze, again, if you have any issues with Cowser in center field, you don't like it, you can put him out there. You can give Cowser a day off. Cowser is eventually going to run into that wall one or two times and probably have a seat, because that's what he does. And then the same thing applies with Westberg, because I think it keeps you in a safe area with Westberg and even with center field and backing up, and it allows you to be a little bit more methodical with some of your moves and how many guys you're keeping up more in the pitching row. If you're looking at pitchers or bats, I think they have some options there, especially if he can cover all those spots. With Blaze, the one thing that they talk about him, one of the best arms in baseball, strongest, like he can throw 90 some miles an hour from the other side of the field. They talk about that a lot. His defense is very good. And as you mentioned, the pop, it feels a little bit better than how they talked about Ryan Flaherty, because some people are going to look at the batting average and go, what? But Flaherty would run into, 7 to 13 home runs if he got those at bats. And I think Blaze will do the same.
Yeah. The more you see the type of player that Blaze is, the more is he being brought in here to be an everyday player? No, he shouldn't be. And you said, are you, the fans are like, are you trading Holiday? Are you trading Westbrook? I don't want to trade either of them, but I especially don't want to trade Jordan Westbrook. That's a guy that if he gives you 140 to 160 games, he's going to hit 30 home runs. He's going to drive in 100. He is a natural-born run producer. He's just got to find a way to stay on the field. And it's not like this isn't Austin Hayes or Nolan Reimold where he's running down a fly ball and he pops a hammy. This is, I slid into second base and jammed my finger. I slept on a bed wrong and hurt my back. I had to get a new mattress. I rounded second base and rolled my ankle. These are like kind of like fluky things.
Doesn't he has to be smarter too, right? Because he's one of those guys, he'll play through it until it gets worse. And then all of a sudden, because like the thing about him, they had to say something to him when he broke his hand. Was it a broken hand, if I remember correctly, or wrist?
I don't think he broke it. I think so. He broke his thumb when he got hit by the pitch against Toronto. Right?
But he was out there fielding ground balls with his arm behind his back. Like he's out there at third base because he's a maniac and he loves the game. And guys like that, they're especially with blue collar cities, you love players like that. Just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If he stays healthy, he's going to be like a Trevor Story type of player, in my opinion. But he's got to stay on the field.
I like that comp.
I've to me, when they drafted him, I was like, oh, he looks like Trevor Story to me. And I think that they're emphasizing that to him. I'd be shocked if they're not saying, look, Jordan, you are a huge part of this team. We need you to be healthy. We need you to be available. When you think about, taking that extra base, maybe think twice about it until like it gets to crunch time or something. You know what I mean? Because he needs to stay on the field. So look, I like the addition of Blaze Alexander in a vacuum. I don't love trading a Cade Stroud to get it because we're still talking about how they need to add more to the bullpen, but then they trade from an area that's already thin to bring in another infield, and you got a ton of those already. It just I need to see what they're going to do with this bullpen. And when you talk about the bullpen, who's going to be part of it? They need help. There's still guys like Dan Kulo, Michael Kopech, Tommy Conley, Evan Phillips out there. Are you really going into the season with Cano, Dietrich Enns, not Ranger Suarez, Albert Suarez, Cade Povich, Tyler Wells? I don't think Cade Povich, unless you absolutely need it, factors into your rotation. And I think he's done enough to not deserve to go back to AAA. And I think Tyler Wells, they're stretching him out as a starter, but I think they're playing all along has been for him to be in the bullpen. Like when you look at the
multiple inning guy. Yeah.
A multiple inning guy who could be a setup guy also, or closer in a pinch. Jeremy, when you look at this Orioles bullpen, do you feel like it's incomplete? Do you trust what's out there? I don't know how I feel about it right now. I just feel like something's missing.
Yeah, look, I feel great about the back end. I love the Helsley signing, and I know it was a year where some people can poke some holes in how things went for him, but that's a big-time K guy. And even if you're bridging the gap for Batista, or if he ends up liking it here, Batista never gets back, I think that's a guy you can count on. But the question is, how do we get to him? And watching those guys, this is the one thing, if you ask me my biggest concerns with the Orioles, it would be the bullpen, just because I don't know how it's going to look. Which guys are actually going to be out there, who's going to make the team, what are their roles going to be. I mean, we know the back end and some of the guys that you trust. I mean, Kittredge and getting him back and all the things that went on, I thought that was great. But yeah, I think this is the biggest question mark for me. One last thing I did want to throw in with Blaze, and I should have brought it up. Added bonus. This isn't why you trade for someone. They said he was the best clubhouse guy in Arizona and that all of his teammates love him. This isn't like a draft day story where nobody's going to draft the quarterback because nobody went to his birthday party with, you remember, Kevin Costner and all that nonsense. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, but with the bullpen, though, I have some of the same concerns that I think you have.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the Blaze, I did have it in my notes that Blaze Alexander is a big time clubhouse guy, and again, it speaks to the culture that the Orioles are trying to build, that they've already built here, and they're trying to build. By the way, I think that Craig Alvarez is going to be a big clubhouse manager, and I love the Alvarez hire. We never really talked about it enough on the show. I love that hire as manager.
I said this multiple times on my show, Paul. Like, I think the Orioles and the Ravens got the guy that everyone wanted. Mm-hmm. I think that's how it worked out. And when you look at Albie turned down other jobs waiting for it, and then seeing what's here, it's like, yes, that's the team. I think this team could get back there very quickly. And I'm interested to see him. When Stephen Vogt was talking about losing him and how huge that was, he's like, man, I'm so happy for him, but God, I wish he was back here. Maybe we had a situation like you had with the Pacers where Rick Carlisle was the brains and Larry Bird was the face, being the coach. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's exciting. The press conference really made him, endeared him to a lot of Orioles fans, and just the attitude and the Gunnar Henderson, pronunciation. That's going to take some getting used to, but I just feel like this is a baseball guy. I'm super excited to have him here. I look at this team and I get excited, but again, the bullpen can do a lot to put out those flames of passion pretty quickly. I just don't know what they're going to do, and I'm so I've been telling people, I feel like they put bullpen on the back burner because if you look at what they have, I think they were like, you know what, we're good here. Now that Stroud's gone, Rico Garcia is probably going to get more of an opportunity. I think that Enns wasn't great in Detroit, but they came here and he averaged more than a strikeout per inning here. Coming out of the bullpen, Keegan Aiken has proven to be a commodity at times, so I think they are better inclined to upgrade from him. But then Helsley, Kittredge, Wells, at the back end of the bullpen, if you're trying to bridge the gap, you've got Suarez, maybe you've got Povich in there. I don't hate these guys, but I think that they're just missing that one extra guy where you look at it and you're like, if we get to the sixth inning and the game's over, with the lead, the game is over. You want them to be at that level. I think that's what takes a team from being good to great, and I just don't think that they've gotten there yet.
You kind of hope that maybe, and it does happen every spring where somebody at spring training catches your eye and ends up making the roster in the bullpen, and you're like, where did this come from? Like I remember when it first happened with Darren O'Day when he started throwing sidearm, and the transition that he made and how crazy that was. And you see even some failed hitters that turn into pitchers going into the bullpen and trying to give you a different look for three batters. So I think there'll be somebody that surprises, and maybe we're not talking about some of these guys in the minors that could work their way up, but that's not what you want to rely on when you're hoping to be a championship team as soon as the season starts.
And a little sidebar, you mentioned Darren O'Day. I love Darren O'Day. And if you go and you look at what he did in an Orioles uniform, Darren O'Day can make a strong argument to be the greatest reliever in the history of the Baltimore Orioles. Zach Britton had that incredible 2016 season, and he was a solid closer for a few years there. You look at what Darren O'Day did from 2012 through 2018. He is arguably the greatest reliever that's ever pitched for the Baltimore Orioles.
I love that guy. Yeah,
he was so good. He was a fun person. You talk about clubhouse cohesion. He was that dude.
He was a prankster.
Yeah, and people loved him. People absolutely loved him. PressBox's annual Best of issue is available for only about a week longer, celebrating the top people, performances, and moments of the year in Baltimore sports, including our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, rated safety Kyle Hamilton. You can find the new issue for free all throughout the region, including now at all Baltimore area High's dairy stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com. So, Jeremy, I told you at the beginning of the show that we were going to get into the Orioles offense here. We haven't spent a lot of time this offseason talking about it because we've been focusing on starting pitching. They were really bad against left-handed pitching last year. They hit 231 with a 661 OPS against left-handed pitching, and it was historically bad before. I think it took a strong last couple of months for them to really get even up to those numbers. My question is, have they done enough to address the concerns? People just assume that because he's a big, bopping, right-handed hitter, that Pete Alonso hits left-handed pitching. 232 for his career, 227 in 2025. Taylor Ward, 283 and 262 in 2025. Blaze Alexander, 269 career. He had 239 in 2025. This is all a small sample size, right? Those are the three bats that the Orioles have really brought in this offseason. I don't count Leotis Taveras because I just don't think he's going to be on the roster. You look at the rest of these guys who fill prominent roles based on who's here right now. Gunnar, 224, 604 in 2025. Westberg, 267, 741. Adley, 258, 706. Kalzer, 188, 638. Holiday, 200, 572. O'Neill, who's brought in to hit left-handed pitching, 157, 646. Mayo, 253, 767. Mountcastle, 262, 598. Beavers, 150, 670. Basayo, 143, 566. You have four guys.
And they got better at that point of the season when those guys were playing.
Yeah. like you look at this, or the guys who figured to fill prominent roles for this team, to have everyday roles here. You have three guys that you're gonna send up to the plate against left-handed pitching and have confidence that they can get something done. And oh, by the way, you had a guy last year, Tyler O'Neill, that couldn't stay on the field, and when he did, he couldn't do jack S against left-handed pitching. I'm a little concerned that they're still going to have significant struggles against Southpaws in 2026.
Look, I think it's fair. I mean, people know I'm the gambling guy, and I would dive into research doing player props or playing daily fantasy. And I got to a point last year where the numbers being correct, the Orioles made left-handed pitchers, no matter what your name was, look like Sandy Koufax in his Cy Young year, one of his Cy Young year. I mean, that's unbelievable. Like you could take one of the soft tossing lefties like a Martin Perez, and he's going to come in and throw 7 innings, and we'll have one guy get on base, and it'll probably be the leadoff hitter for the game, and it'll settle in. It was so unbelievable last year. Now, this is where we were talking earlier about the if thing. It's like, if Tyler O'Neill can stay healthy, maybe his numbers have to go up from what they were last year. Pete Alonso in the lineup, Taylor Ward, not guys that you consider with high batting averages and getting on base. How are they going to make contact with left-handed pitching? What do the lineups look like against left-handed pitching? I mean, are we going to stack it all righties? There's a ton that they can do with it, except for your mainstays. I just don't know that they did enough, but I also would like to think that last year was somewhat of an anomaly because it was so bad.
Yeah.
But I think it probably lies somewhere in between. Like they'll be better, but maybe not good enough against left-handed pitching.
Well, and I'll tell you, when I texted you the other day to come on the show, I let you know I've been listening to the Big Bad Morning Show daily because I have to take my daughter to daycare, and I'm in the car. I don't listen to music in the car really. I listen to sports talk radio, until about 2 p.m. But
that's when you get home, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I get in the car at 6 a.m. to take my daughter to daycare, it's the big show. Trying to cry. I was beating the drum so hard for Cody Bellinger, and I was beating that drum for 3 years, right? And then I would listen to you guys for the last couple of months, and you and Rob Long were saying the same thing that I was saying. If you bring in Bellinger, your center field situation is saved. It is figured out. You have the ability to DH Alonso some because he can play first base if you want to get Bellinger can play first base if you want to get some rest for Alonso so that he's fresh down the stretch for you. You now have the ability to trade Mountcastle and Kobe Mayo as part of a package for a legitimate starting pitcher. And oh, by the way, Cody Bellinger hits left-handed pitching, and his swing is tailor-made for Camden Yards. He was a better free agent fit for the Orioles than Pete Alonso was. Now, Pete Alonso was a huge fit for them and a huge need for them. Cody Bellinger made so much sense for this team. I get it that he wanted to be back in New York, and a lot of people are trying to tell me he doesn't want to play in a small market like Baltimore, or mid-market. I don't consider this a small market. But Cody Bellinger, why were they not full court press on this guy? Why was this guy not a priority for them? He fixed so much about your roster by being here, and you didn't even hear that they talked to him.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of undervalued. And I don't know why, because again, there were a lot of different things you could do when we were talking about possibly trading for a starting pitcher, or whether or not you want Cody Bellinger to come in, and you're not thrilled with Colton Cowser in center field. I know some of the defensive metrics people have thrown him saying, look at this, and other ones where you go, is he going to get hurt? What's going to happen? How much do you like him out there? I just thought it was a really great fit. And as you said, nobody's going to realize it because we're so lefty, righty, but Bellinger does hit lefties better than what Pete Alonso does. I wanted a big donkey in the middle of our lineup, and I think we got that with Alonso.
I wanted them too.
Yeah, I don't feel like anybody's talking about Ward, and there are two guys that hit 35 bombs last year. And as far as right-handed bats go, there weren't many. I think Aaron Judge was the other, right? Like you got those guys in the lineup. So I do think it improves, but man, I think Bellinger could have changed everything from that outlook, and it does give you some flexibility in a trade, which I do think would have had to happen at that point.
And like, you're going to have to give him a ton of money. The Yankees gave him a ton of money to come back, right? You could have, your payroll's still under what it was last year. You've talked about having no financial restrictions. You've talked about being able to go into the red, which is about $244 million, if you're specifically talking about the luxury tax threshold, right? And again, I'm not trying to cry over spilled milk because he's not here. He's not going to be here, and that's unless he opts out in a couple of years and decides to sign in Baltimore, at which point he may no longer be, what you want. But it's all that to say is it brings me to my next point. And my next point is, this is my third straight show that I'm going to shout this from a mountaintop, Jeremy. The Orioles roster does not make sense right now. It just does not make sense. You've got Mountcastle, Mayo, Rutschman, Basayo, O'Neill, Beavers, Alonso, who should be everyday players. Alonso's going to play first base every day. You're going to have a platoon in right field between O'Neill and Beavers. Rutschman and Basayo are conceivably going to catch and DH every single day. What are you doing with Ryan Mountcastle? What are you doing with Kobe Mayo? What are you doing with Tyler O'Neill if he's not playing right field? That's a 30 home run bat if he's healthy. You have all of these players. You have such a long time on this major league roster that I've been telling people this is why I thought that Framber Valdez was less likely than the Orioles making a trade, because the roster, as currently constructed, does not make sense. And I wanted to get your take on that because I just don't see them going into opening day with the roster as it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would have used the words don't make sense, but I've talked about this because, again, I even alluded to it earlier. You kind of have catcher, first base, DH locked up. I mean, you could tweak some things, but we know who's going to be in the lineup or who you're going to want in the lineup. And look, I'm a big-time Kobe Mayo fan. I think this kid can hit. I think he's going to be a good player. But when you sign Alonso, I don't know what you're doing there because there's no spot for him with you signing Basayo. So from your standpoint, if I'm going to look at the lineup and go, yeah, you'd like to have a little bit more flexibility until the Blaze Alexander move. What happens if Westberg got hurt? What are we doing there? Like, what's the switch that we make? Who comes in? So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I wish they had more flexibility to it, or if we had situations where we had players ready to play. Like, I wanted to see any of these young guys that get called up. Like, Basayo should be playing as many games as he can. I don't want this nonsense of him playing like 80 games and we're sitting him here or he's struggling against this or that. Like, we need to see these guys and see what we have. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't know if I would say it doesn't work. We have to see it first, but you might end up being right.
Well, and then think about the fact, I don't think I'm wrong in saying that they probably should have tried Mayo in a corner outfield spot when they realized this dude can't play third base, but he's got a 70 grade arm. Maybe he can play first base. He's not great over there either, and you're wasting his arm at first base if he's going to play there. So somebody did mention to me, well, I think that Mayo is going to start the year in AAA, and they're going to be getting him used to playing the outfield. And if you aren't able to re-sign, if Taylor Ward has a big year or doesn't have a big year and he's not back next season for you, you fill that spot immediately with Kobe Mayo. And maybe that's why it makes sense to keep him here now. But that's only if you were to get him up to speed as a corner outfielder. I don't know if that's what they're doing or not, but otherwise, I think something's got to be in the works. I also think that Colton Cowser has a lot to prove this year, because if you look at his numbers against anything other than a fastball, they're not good. And the guy's arm is crazy strong, but you've also got to be accurate for that strong arm to matter, right? And a lot of people think that I hate Colton Cowser. I don't hate Colton Cowser. I love the guy's personality. I think he's great for the clubhouse, and I think he's got all the talent in the world to be an all-star for this team. It's just he hasn't done it to this point. I've got to see more out of him. And are the Orioles looking at him like, hey, let's put this together this year, or maybe the problem kind of solves itself there as well. Just not sure what they're going to do moving forward, but I think a trade is certainly incoming.
Yeah, whether it's middle of the season or some point of the season or even before. But like, I didn't even think about Mayo going to the outfield, and it feels like if that's the case and you're going to try him out there, I'd like to see what happens. I mean, look, Kyle Schwarber's played the outfield, and we've watched some guys bring a glove to the ballpark that have no business being in the out. Hell, I don't think Juan Soto should be in the outfield, and he almost got a Gold Glove. However that voting worked out. But again, like, yeah, I mean, I'm a big Mayo guy. I wanted to see him on this team and get to obviously see more of him at first base, but here we are. You've got to make some moves, and I feel like because the offseason was so bad last year, that's why these moves have to happen now, and you can't take a little bit of time and look at Mayo because, you know, when you looked at some of the comps when we had Basayo, Holiday, Mayo, those three guys, Mayo's comp a lot of times was similar to Pete Alonso. Power, you know, was going to hit you a bunch of extra base hits, probably hit you 260, 250, somewhere in there. But that was like his ceiling. And now you're looking at it going, okay, we'll trade him away, see what happens, or put him in the outfield and see if he's not a sieve out there. If that's the case, maybe you have something. But again, like of all the guys we're coming into the season, Dylan Beavers is the one I'm interested in most because that 375 on base percentage that he had last year. It just seems like he walks and he gets on base, and that's what this team needs.
Beavers is very exciting to me. I'd like to see Beavers get the opportunity to play every day. I think that he's just almost like a Jordan Westburg, right? Because he wasn't that first round pick like Colton, Beavers wasn't a first round pick like Colton Cowser was. Jordan Westburg was a first round pick, but he's not Gunnar Henderson. He's not Jackson Holiday as far as the positive circumstance that comes around those two names and what Gunner's become and what Jackson's supposed to become. But they're just solid players who, when they get an opportunity to play every day, seem to put the bat on the ball, seem to get on base, and big things seem to happen when they're in your lineup. So I would love to see Beavers get the opportunity. And the other thing, some of these prospects, Jeremy, like they've got to start to hit for you. And I don't mean hit like obviously they have to hit in the game, but like you've got to start hitting on some of these prospects. Gunnar has absolutely hit. He's one of the top players in the game. I think he's got an MVP caliber season coming in 2026, especially now that we know about the shoulder impingement. But Westburg hasn't been able to stay on the field. Jackson Holiday is the worst right now of the Jacksons that all debuted in the same year, right? And he was the number one overall pick in that draft. Colton Cowser was a 5th overall pick, and he can't hit anything but a fastball seemingly. Heston Kjerstad was the number 2 overall pick, and we forget about him because of how bad he was last year. He was shut down. We forgot that he's on this team almost, and the fact that he's going to be spring training fully healthy.
You just brought up his name, and I went, "Oh, I forgot about him."
Everybody forgot about him because of what happened last year and the fact he got shut down basically from August on last season. Some of these guys have to start. You have to hit on them, and I don't know what it's going to take. I don't really know what point I'm trying to make here, I guess, but you have all these guys, and if you're not going to hit on them, you've got to be able to trade them for something that is going to hit for you.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is, and anybody that's played like fantasy baseball, or if you follow baseball closely, both leagues, like I'm watching guys get traded now for a bag of balls that teams said a year or two previously, there's no way we would trade him. You know, there's these prospects that were coveted so much, and then they get to the major leagues, and it's like, yeah, that guy's a 4th outfielder. At some point, whether they're drafting well or not, you got to figure out what you have here. But also, I don't want to be the ones that are just coveting the guys that are in front of us and forget about the guys that are on the way. And those end up being the ones we trade away because we have these guys. And again, Colton Cowser is the perfect example. You brought up exactly some of the issues he has, and he's so streaky because of that. And it's like, why would you ever throw this guy a fastball? Now, maybe this lineup helps. Maybe he gets to see more fastballs depending on where you hit him, and they get him going early. But yeah, I mean, I've been hearing about Enrique Bradfield Jr. for years. Like, what is this the year that all of a sudden somebody forces their way or forces their hand? You know, I hope they do right by him, because like one of the things that I was big on with the Trevor Rogers trade is that I didn't think Stowers or Norby were going to get the chance here. I just they were blocked. And so we traded two guys to get something. It ends up working out in the end, hopefully, with what Rogers has done. But Stowers looked amazing last year when he was playing. Mm-hmm. So, I think you have to look at this and be willing to make some of those moves. They started making moves, and then all of a sudden we're going, did they give up too much for him? Because the trade that got me was the one with Tampa Bay for Boz. I think they gave up some really good players in that trade. But, as you said, he's under control for a long period of time.
The trade for Boz, I mean, they essentially gave up four first-round picks to get Shane Boz. So you're in the back of your mind, you're like, he better be good, you know. And a lot of these guys probably minimum 2 years away from helping your big league ball club. So you're okay with that. But no matter what happens, Jeremy, when you trade something to get something, you've got to give up something. Like you see these mock trades that fans like to put out there, and it's like nobody's taking Heston Kjerstad and Vance Honeycutt and giving you Freddie Peralta. Like that's not gonna happen. You know, so you got to be willing to give up stuff. You know, we saw when they brought in Corbin Burns, they gave up DL Hall, who I was brokenhearted about DL Hall. I loved that dude, and I was so high on him, even if he was just a reliever. Like I was so high on him. And then Joey Ortiz, probably the best defensive shortstop that the Orioles had in their system. You know, because of his glove in Milwaukee. You had to give up something to get something when it came to Corbin Burns, and it's going to be the same thing here. And people are not going to be, oh my gosh! And if they trade Kowser, I can't listen to talk radio for a week. Like I'm not going to be able to do it, man. Today's show has been brought to you by the County Sports Zone. We're in the throes of winter sports season, and at the high school level, all year long, find scores, schedules, and updates for every sport and every school all throughout the state at countysports.zone. Countysports.zone is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Winding things down here on the Batter on Jeremy, we always do a viewer comments portion of the show, so we're going to get into that today. Okay. From the Back It Up Binge podcast, the reactions I've seen from O's fans agree with him not being signed. Contract too rich. Head case. And then he says, I don't get the Blaze trade. How many infielders do we? This comment was supposed to come in first. I apologize. With a younger clubhouse like Orioles, a head case like Framber is more tough to manage and can quickly ruin that vibe. Yeah, I think that we talked about that at the beginning, and how much of it is us trying to come to terms with the fact that he didn't sign here. You know, and we're like, oh, well, I didn't want him anyway. He's a head case and his velocity's down. Blah blah blah. Like, how much of it is that?
I think we in Baltimore do that better than most cities. And granted, I've only known this one, but whenever somebody doesn't choose us, I hope you die. You suck. you know, like it gets crazy. And the same thing when you get somebody, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's the best. He's going to do this. I can't sit here and say that I was worried about Framber being, bad in the clubhouse. I like the way the clubhouse is. I like some of the things I'm hearing about Pete Alonso in that clubhouse. But yeah, one bad egg can ruin everything. But I would like to think with the new manager being in place and how he deals with players, that this is going to be his clubhouse, and then we'll have our leaders there. So that was never really a concern for me. Framber, the one thing I did like about him, even though some of his numbers were looking at him going down, is that he was always an extreme ground ball pitcher. So I always think guys like that can go a little bit long. I just brought up Martin Perez. He's still pitching, and I think he was pitching when I was in high school.
Well, and the thing about Framber, he gives up a lot of hard hit balls, but a lot of them are on the ground. So how many double plays are you turning because of the fact that he gives up hard ground balls? So like, look, Framber Valdez, if the Orioles had him, huge addition. We'd
be loving him.
A World Series contender, and we'd be talking about how great he is, and not the opposite. Look, I do it all the time. As soon as he signed with Detroit, I was like, I hope he sucks for them. I hope Dylan Cease pitches to a 4.80 ERA in Toronto. I hope Sonny Gray's career is over pitching in Boston. Like I do it too. You know what I mean? And it's because they aren't here. So like I totally understand that. Also from the Back It Up Binge podcast, I don't get the Blaze trade. How many infielders do we need trade forthcoming? It's not about how many infielders you need, because he's not being brought in here to play every day. Again, unless there's an undisclosed injury that we're about to find out about in a few days. He's here to be a utility infielder. And in that vein, it does make sense. It just doesn't make a ton of sense trading a bullpen piece. But again, we'll see what happens there. Any thoughts on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, the other thing I would say is I think there are going to be times against lefties that Cowser's going to be sitting and he'll be in center field.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we see quite a bit of that. But when you look at it, I actually like the Blaze trade. Maybe not necessarily what they gave up, but they needed a guy like this. And I always go to look at what other teams' fans are saying about the players that get moved. Have him popping his bat, kind of being one of those guys that just fits into this clubhouse. And yeah, they did need a utility infielder. Somebody had to play that role. Maybe you think they gave up too much for this guy, but what happens if this was another former top pick. So what happens if he kind of gets that form and now you're like, well, wait a minute. We have a piece here we could trade or plug in, trade somebody else. There's always been a lot of talk would they consider moving Jackson Holiday to center field? Would Blaze go to center field? Like you have a bunch of options there.
Yeah, there's a ton of options. He's a very versatile player. He can play all over the diamond for you, except for maybe I think the only position he won't play for you is first base and catcher. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him play first base at the end of a game at some point, maybe. I like Blaze Alexander being here. I just I want to see what they're going to do with the bullpen now that they've lost another piece.
Yeah.
David Devaney says Jeremy looks like a Civil War reenactor. It's a high quality beard. I can't grow mine like that. This is about the extent of what you'll see with mine.
Well, when you have a face that looks like mine, you try to cover it in as much hair as possible. So I think I look like I was in the Civil War personally. So that's what when I don't get trimmed up, I was telling somebody else, they was like, oh my God, man, your beard got so big. I said, and can you spare some change because I look homeless? So I get the Tim Allen and Santa Claus a lot that I look like him.
Oh, man.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it sucks. So I got to think of him as a sex symbol if I think I'm attractive at all.
Those home improvement days. He was a fine looking. David also said Elias and Rubenstein said they had unlimited resources after the Alonso signing. That's still the case. That's still the case. Like, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. But let's say that tomorrow you find out that they made this big time trade. They picked up Scuba and they took on his $32 million salary. Like, they have the money to do that. I don't think that they were lying to us. I just think that the way that the dominoes fell for them was the exact opposite of what they were anticipating. I think that they were all in on Ranger Suarez, and when they didn't get him, they were like, all right, what are we going to do now? I don't know that Elias has been sitting on his hands like a lot of fans are indicating. I just don't think that he liked Valdez enough to go to the number that Valdez wanted or the years that he wanted. I think it was Suarez or bust for them. And now while they were waiting for Suarez to make a decision and for Valdez to make a decision, guys like Mackenzie Gore and Freddie Peralta got traded. Like, you can't stop what other teams are they're not going to sit around and wait for you to make a move. And if you make the wrong move, then we're having another conversation about how Elias did something wrong. Like, you can't win for losing if you're this guy. And Lord knows I've been as hard on him and everybody else as anybody can be. But I'm going to give him a little bit of grace here because I think that they had their guy and they missed out on it. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, like if you were a free agent starting pitcher and you're looking to sign a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, do the Orioles even look good to you at this point? Because they have 5 starters, and then am I going to be one of those 5? Are they bumping somebody out of that rotation? If I went to another team, would I be able to showcase my talents the full season? And look, I'm not saying that ends up being the end all be all and that's what happens, but like, I think if I was debating on 2 teams and looking at who I wanted to sign with and all things being similar, I'd want to go to the place where I surefire know I'm going to get my starts and have an opportunity to showcase myself. Maybe we end up with one of the vets who know who they are. Like, you bring up Verlander and everybody's saying no. Maybe it is one of those guys.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because you have 5 guys in your rotation right now that if they're all healthy at the end of spring,
Is it just me? Everybody freeze?
All right, everybody. If you're still tuning in, if you're still there with us, apparently our stream is still going live here. What I will tell you is that my power went out for a split second, and it knocked my internet off, and so I couldn't get back in. Couldn't get back into the show in a fair amount of time, so I let Jeremy take off. Today's show was brought to you by Live Casino Sports and Social Live at Live Casino Hotel is the best place to watch the biggest game tomorrow. New England and Seattle battle it out on the 100-foot median wall. Enjoy delicious game day food and drink specials, and there will be giveaways and interactive activities throughout the night, all at Sports and Social inside Live Casino and Hotel. Just gonna get out of here for the show here. I think that the Orioles are going to be making a trade here to get some more starting pitching. I think they have to address the bullpen. I am excited for the upcoming season, just not sure what it's going to entail as far as the roster is concerned. And all I know is that the makeup of the roster right now isn't great. With rephrase, sorry, still a little fluster from the internet just kicking out on me. But the roster is great. I love the roster. I love the lineup. I really like the rotation. I am high on the rotation. It's just there's a lot of guys that are still here that probably aren't going to be here because they deserve to play just about every day, and they're not going to get that opportunity here. Namely, Kobe Mayo, Ryan Mountcastle. It just doesn't make a ton of sense with the way things are currently constructed. So I do believe that a trade is coming in. If you are a regular viewer, if you're just tuning in for the first time, or you only come in a few times a year, this is our last 10 a.m. show until the fall. We are moving back to Sunday nights at 8:30 beginning next Sunday, February 15th. Zach Moore should be back on the show with us beginning next Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we do not have a show. Thank you to all of our loyal viewers, listeners, guests. Without you, we do not 100% do not have a show. Special thanks to Jeremy Conn. He is always phenomenal when he comes on the show. Greatly appreciate him helping me out today. So thank you again to him. Guys, until next week, spring training is starting. Time to get excited.